Welcome to Digital Asset Degen. I'm Ryan, and we're back. Degen's going to Degen. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. I have been very, very lazy in continuing to stream on a regular nightly basis. I have absolutely gotten so far off track. I've had like a birthday, Thanksgiving, and all that fun stuff, and totally just making excuses right now. But I literally woke up from a nap like on Saturday, I think it was, and Bitcoin was at 42,000. So that was a nice surprise. But we're just going to chit chat about what's coming next for crypto and Bitcoin, and going to run through obviously the usual suspects as far as scenarios. I think some of the biggest things first to cover is that there's definitely a lot of bullish people out there. I think the majority of the crypto market absolutely is screaming for a continuous bull run. And that'll be interesting to find out if it really does happen. Let me actually double check something here really quick. Okay, cool. So I just wanted to make sure that I was all caught up. But here's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about so many bullish people out there, which is great because we might see a pretty nasty run up. Here, let's go ahead and just switch over to the charts. And wow, yeah, I've still got After Effects up. So that's perfect. Let me save this out really quick so that I don't lose my project. I'm redoing my intro in case you were curious. So that's 118. Hopefully this will help too. And I also got hardwired. Finally, I just was so mad at myself when I got the specific laptop that I got. I totally didn't even think. I don't even know why, because usually speccing out computers are like, trying to figure out how things are going to fit together properly. Usually I'm actually pretty decent at that. And I take into consideration everything that I want. And I just pulled the trigger super fast. And I was just like, yeah, okay, it's fine. So, but we got hardwired. And my upload time now is literally double what it was before. Strangely enough, though, my download speed isn't really too much different. It's kind of interesting. It was only like the difference of like 20 or 30 megabits per second. But anywho, so why we're hopping on here today, just to chit chat just for a couple minutes, is we're just going to talk about Bitcoin pump or dump, what's next for crypto, and I think we're looking. We got to zoom out and we got to look at some of the larger time frames right now. I'm going to go to the weekly just because I don't love going to the monthly, even though like it can give some insight. That's so sexy. That is so hot right in the pants. All right. That was a little bit much, but you got me. So we're right about here, and that candle I don't think is actually closed because it closed the most recent one here to get us to the 40 or the 30, is that 39,000 we wicked up? Yeah, we've got till next Sunday until that's going to close, if I'm not mistaken. But what we're looking at here is a red hot dumpster fire of a potential downswing. As much as I want to say we're going to 48K, I'm really cautious right now. I know there's been a couple of people who I pay attention to that have mentioned that they've actually sold Bitcoin. And it sounds like they believe we're going back down to 20 grand or 30 grand or something in that general area. And it's very possible we might. I'm not going to sit here and definitively tell you we're going up or we're going down. It could happen either way. It really just depends on the events that occur. And what I specifically mean by that is definitely the ETFs when they get approved, which the ETF approval could do one of two things. It could send us up with a huge candle north to the positive, and we could see a dump after that, or it might just chop sideways. It's very possible that once the spot Bitcoin ETFs come out, if there's not a lot of price action from, the traditional companies or institutions, excuse me. I always find that weird calling it an institution because it almost sounds like somebody's going to the crazy bin. But I mean, there's definitely some scenarios that can play out. I think there is a possibility for a 30 to 50% correction. That would have to be pretty bad though, I think, as far as the news that we would get out. And and why I say that is ultimately because when we're paying attention to crypto, okay, you know what? Let me actually draw. Where's my tool? Where is my tool? I used to have my tool belt over here. This is probably, no, this is totally not going to give me what I want. This is what I want. Parallel channel. Okay. Look at that. These two wicks right here are literally, this is so insane. They're so sassy. I'll say conservatively, we could have some support up here, and you'll have to bear with me on this because this is a very, very broad box of support and resistance. More specifically, I mean, once we get up into this area here, the 48 range. So I think what I'll do is this. I think we should kind of be down in this area here. And then we'll move this guy up, or gal. So I think right around in this area, and it really could span right here where we're at. I mean, the 40,000 mark is kind of pivotal. But you can see how the top in this wick over here is very, very close, if not right on the money, to that wick there. Let me see if I can pull this down just a smidge. Okay. So my whole thought in this, like, kind of explanation of what I'm exploring here is you really ultimately, I wonder if we have any downswings. Maybe, is there a trend line over here somewhere that I probably haven't looked at yet? Like right there maybe. And then there, and then, yeah. I mean, I know you've got a trend line that goes like this, and you can see how the 2 points here connect. But I'm also kind of curious what that picture looks like. Yeah, see, that doesn't really do it for me. Those two trend lines connect, and then you can see how this area here served as resistance against it. I'm actually going to do away with that right now. Okay. But the whole idea of looking at Bitcoin and ultimately really understanding where it's going to go is several things. Number one is money flow, money coming into the market. And we're pre-halving right now. Bitcoin's literally 2/3 of the price, 60% almost, maybe a little bit under. But Bitcoin from its all-time high, it was 69,000. And right now we're sitting at 41.7. And so my whole thought process is that we could see it drop back to maybe 30,000, 25, 26. And the reason I say 26, because right here is 26,000, this little area here. And the reason I've highlighted that area specifically is, or at least I wanted to talk about it, is because I hadn't really paid attention to our last pullback, but that was ultimately the last pullback from the most recent all-time high before we busted through the 31,000 mark. Believe me, my Bitcoin friend is already calling for 50,000 by the end of the year, which may not actually be, incorrect. I mean, it might be correct is what I mean. I just kind of worded that weird. But ultimately, this is the last pullback that we've really, truly had. Now, granted, we're on the weekly, so it might look a little bit different once I switch over to the daily charts. Ultimately, though, you have to take into consideration, like, there's a lot of support right here in the volume, and that's in the 38s. But if you look here, if we get hit hard and drop down 5K, which would be a 10% down move, then it's very possible we might see a 30,000, 31,000 retracement. I think that's going to determine several things. Let me actually go here to there. So from 26K up to 42, that's like a 70% move, right? Well, it says 69%. We might as well leave it there because that's a nice round number. Okay, you little sassy girl. Let me actually get this out of here. So that's one of the things I just wanted to kind of cover really quick, because we haven't had a lot of retracement yet. And ultimately, if we haven't had retracement, that means it's probably coming at some point. Now, could we just go all the way up to like 50, 60, 70,000 and then drop back to 50, for example, or drop, incrementally? Like, it's very possible. On the weekly flow, the money flow is actually coming up, and we haven't had green money flow, this deep since we were actually right around in here. Actually right here, and that was right at 45,000. Now, does that really tell me whether or not we're going to go back to 45,000? No, it doesn't. Or does that tell me that we're going to 45,000 or above? No, it doesn't. You just have to remember, like, in the first run up, we were right here, and so that was right around 50. That was the peak of the money flow, and that money looks like 56 to 60,000, just depending on if you're going at the top of the candle or the wick, right? And so that's what you need to focus on, is that, okay, so we've got some good money flow coming in, and it's very possible that this might start to round off as we get into, that's, Flex was in here not too long ago. I got to apologize to him again because I told him I was going to do like regular streams, and of course I've slacked off and had too much fun and not enough fun. But if we do a nice little money flow there, that takes us to April. Now, the problem with that money flow that I hate is if we go to April with it at the halving, then once we have, depending on how it arcs back up, that could put us mid-July before we really start to have money flow come in hard. Now, that could be like a perfect scenario. And again, we don't know how the ETFs are going to play out, but we want to look at the money flow like this. And you can also see the VWAP right here is starting to curve back to the upside. And that's pretty significant because that's a volume weighted average, whatchamacallit. Oh gosh, I can't believe profile. No, I've screwed this up. I gotta pull this up because otherwise it's gonna kill me. Yeah, volume weighted average price. I can't believe I said profile, but it's kind of the same thing, sort of not actually. So it's just using the average, an average volume weighted average price. So there's volume and taking it. Yeah, we'll dive into it if you really want to understand how a carburetor works in the crypto world. But ultimately, you kind of have to look at this in this manner. So either one of two things might happen here. We're either going to have a nice little smooth rounded shape, kind of like you have a big green blob here, and you kind of have a little bit of a nice round shape here. It's not perfect, this kind of looks like a head and shoulders, right? So, but you need to understand this is going to help us identify a pattern, hopefully, that we can take advantage of. And you just have to remember too, once you get into the bull run, these RSIs and stochastics, they just hum off the top of like the 100 mark. And you can see, just as an example here, this is June of 2020, and the RSIs were not all the way to the top yet, and they were gapped a little bit. And, in 2020, or at the end of 2019, it did start to come up a little bit right before it dumped in March of 2020, which is when we obviously had the shutdowns and everything. And then as we came out of that in March, April, and then May, we had the halving. We came into the halving going up, and then it got a little bit flat. And then July 20th, really right around July 20th, mid-July, it started to come up again. And then it pumped back down, and now it's at, and then we went for the parabolic run up from, really October. Well, the newer high for that particular cycle would have been first week in November of 2020. So if you got in there, you were getting in at a pretty decent time. Had I actually put my money where my mouth was and really had dived into crypto that early rather than in January, it would have been a totally different scenario for me where I'm at right now. But everybody's got those stories, right? But so, we're basically looking at this and trying to identify, specific patterns. You got hump like that. You've got a couple here, like they have nice little round humps, as we're coming into, the next phase. And this is really not a great representation of what will exactly happen once we get into 2024. The reason is because of the Black Swan event here. Now, does there have some weight to what we're going to be seeing from the Fed when they start cutting rates. Do the markets absolutely don't? Do they cut rates in March? And when they cut rates in March, what does that picture look like for the traditional markets? Because the ETFs may not perform as well, meaning, if they cut rates and the markets start to dump on risk assets, which means stocks and crypto, essentially, that means that the people that are driving ETFs, unless they're trying to get their clients in there, they're going to have to sell them into it and say, listen, you need to get in there, and they need to show them technical analysis and understand how this is going to play out. But one of the things that we'll have to cover that in just a second. But one of the things I look at when I see this chart, I'm like, if the pandemic had never happened, I mean, do we see this? And then a harder run up, and that's not a great line drawing there, of course. I'm not some sort of artist, but we could make like some sort of pumpkin face with like a little triangle here. It's Pippi the Pumpkin. Okay, that was terrible, but you get the idea. Whoop, whoop. We should probably just do like a mohawk. Yeah, there it is. Enough about my silly drawings. But the whole point that we're looking at is just to kind of speculate and try to understand. I mean, Bitcoin has a very volatile, you can see these humps right here. This one right here, well, that may not be viewable to you as well. But you can definitely see there's like this ebb and flow. And what's interesting is on the weekly chart, which is great for anybody that's trying to swing trade, if you look at this, just as an example, like right here, the VWAP is cresting up at the highest, right? And then as it comes to the zero line, that's where you see the absolute peak. And if you see it during that week, to dump, because when the VWAP starts going down and it continues to go down and down and down, and this is over the course of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, etc. The VWAP stays under the zero line here, right? And so that's pretty significant. And that obviously, if you're seeing this right here and you're seeing the money curve, you're seeing the red dot that's printed, you're seeing the big dump on momentum, and the VWAP is under that. That's really interesting to me because, the VWAP it front runs by no, it doesn't actually here on the weekly. A lot of times I'll see the VWAP, the yellow wave here, front run the momentum wave just by like a little bit. But back to what I was getting at, because I got a little carried away there. But you can literally look here and see the trades. Like if you see the VWAP goes up like this, and then it starts to come down to the zero line, like as it gets close to that zero line, that's where you would probably want to pull any profits that you can. And then you see the VWAP come down again like this, and that's July of 2017, right? And so then you see it rip back up to the upside. And just for some context here, like where this VWAP wave starts is right there, sort of. That's a 193%, 173% move roughly. That's the actual zero line there, just a week in front of it. But that's a 260% move. And if we go here, we can cruise up to that. That's a 75% drop. So you go from like a 175% move up to a 75% drop. And then if we see the VWAP here, we see how it's starting to curve up pretty tightly. Then that means you got to be looking for a long there, if you're dangerous. And then you have another 165, 170% move, right? So the VWAP can be used by itself. And I was in a live stream with CF not too long ago, and there was somebody that was talking about like, I'm just mucking everything up and I'm not really sure if I'm overthinking it. And the kid was just like, I see all these things, but then I see the lower time frames change. And, he was like, listen, you can simplify it by just using the VWAP. And so then I started taking a look at it a little bit more closely. And I've taken my time with this. Like, I'm in no rush to make millions of dollars right now. In fact, I hope I didn't get liquidated or thrown a trade while I was half asleep the other night. But I don't think that I did. Let's see here. But we best, yeah, no, I just played it safe. I actually stopped trading Friday night, I think maybe, and decided let's hang it up for the weekend. And then we got these massive moves to the upside, which is, ultimately it's just kind of like, am I gonna care? Like, how am I gonna beat myself up over that? But it's just like everybody when you talk about it. Whoops. Yeah, so I don't have a lot that I'm trading with right now, just so you guys are aware. And most of it's in USDT just to make the math easier. And hopefully that'll help me get my taxes done a little bit easier as well. Okay, now come on. Come on, go to my trading account. Thank you. And I don't know that I'm going to do any live trading right now just because I'm a little bit tired. I haven't been paying attention to the charts, for very long today. This is the first time I've really looked at it, but I just wanted to show like what this looks like, what the green money flow looks like in a bull run, and what the VWAP looks like. And that's kind of interesting there, because that's 2021 and the VWAP is legit, like straight down to the ground. That must have been why CF was like selling May walk away. Now maybe he knew something before that, but I don't know who he runs with, just as far as like the whale crew and whoever they call, he's got a specific group that he works with, like professionally, non-professionally. I'm not exactly sure how you'd qualify it, but ultimately, so we're looking at some like pretty big resistance areas there. So I just wanted to show those patterns. And that's one thing that CF talks about, is that Bitcoin and crypto has a pretty consistent pattern. So this was a 76% move down, really 77-ish, we'll call it. I know there's other people out there who'd get very particular with this, but for the fib retracement just from the very top here, and I haven't run one of these in a while, but this is like roughly the bottom. And what's interesting is this is your golden pocket right here, which is kind of fun. I actually chose a little bit south of the golden pocket, and bear with me on this, because do you see what happened there? The bottom line right here, and I can't pull this fib retracement to the side, can I? Is the 5 something. That's so funny. I always do this to myself. Let me hang on. My golden pocket, the 786, the 575. Yeah, that's the 575. Or wait. Yes, that is 575. Okay, so the reason I'm explaining that is because even though I didn't nail the golden pocket, which that would be a little easier to see, like the top here and then the top here. Let me actually remove that too. I should have just done this. That would have been a lot easier. But you can see how the 426 or the 0.5, that line specifically lines up with the bottom. And then this one isn't really as good. I was just basing it on like as far as my charting and nailing like the actual lines of what we see as far as support and resistance. Now, if I went down a little bit, like it's not much, but that's just intersecting, like cuts off the tops of these little lumps right here. We'll call them lumpies. But the whole point of what I'm getting at is sometimes when you identify support and retracement, it can be very on point with what you see on a fib retracement. And yeah. Yeah. Making weird sounds while streaming. So yeah, so and I think like had this channel been up here a little bit more, that would have made sense just because of these moves here. It's also not on the daily too, so you may not see as many support and resistance levels. Without question, it is what it is. Everybody charts a little bit differently, but a lot of people come to the same conclusions. So what I'm just really trying to get across that there can be retracements. We can see some pretty nasty turns. And I mean, just right, like when you see this right here and then you go to the 2020 low, like I'm actually going to blow this up because I want to rerun this one more time. I think that was a pretty strong move to the downside. Let's see here. Yeah, you can see this top aligns with the golden pocket, even if I stretched it over here too. Oh, whoops. I just pulled another fib. Go me. I'm on a roll. Let me actually pull out my measuring tool here. So over the course of, smells like Teen Spirit. So it's on the weekly, and that's 260 days of going to the downside, basically. We made a lower low here, and then we made a higher high than what we did back here, or it came up into that resistance area, and then it just straight dumped. So, it's very possible. I mean, let me see what this date is. Well, that's June of 2019. So if we get some really bad news, that's going to be very concerning for the health and recovery of Bitcoin going into the 2025 bull run. And the reason I'm saying that is because we don't have a lot of time for Bitcoin to really recover. That's really one of the biggest things that we all need to kind of pay attention to, because we could see this dump to 30, 25, 20K, and just even a 30% retracement, I think, would be pretty gnarly. I mean, that would be, 10, 12, 14 grand. Yeah, 30% right there is putting us right at 30,000. So that's the big thing is how quickly is Bitcoin gonna move? Pardon me. And how quickly is it going to, if there is going to be a secondary scare, which we saw that in 2020, obviously due to the pandemic. But we did see Bitcoin right here go from, 13, 14,000 or whatever it was. And without the pandemic happening, and this is why I want to talk about this, because I think what we could see is a cooling off period, even without a black swan. That's down 53%. It's probably closer to like 52%. Let me see if I can repull that. We had a little bit of a double bottom there, but yeah, I came up with 53% again. So just remember, even though, I mean, and this is obviously June of 2019 through December of 2019. And as we were going into the halving, that's when Bitcoin really started to gain some strength. So, and I hope we don't see that 50% retracement, just because of the amount of time that it's going to take for Bitcoin to recover, for people to start getting FOMO and, freaking out and, having a good old time and just saying, let's go Bitcoin to the moonsies. Right? Isn't that right? So those are my biggest concerns right now. Will crypto go up? Yes, I 100% believe that Bitcoin will lead the charge. Now, how far the charge is led before we have any kind of a retracement, we haven't seen any kind of a retracement yet. Let me actually look at this one here. that's one of the things I'm just curious about. And it scares me because I want Bitcoin to have the biggest bull run ever. Everybody's saying, oh, it's going to have the biggest bull run ever. Whoops. Interesting. I'll have to play with that tool a little later. I was thinking that was something totally different. But I do want to get, oops, let's see if it'll let me Command Z it. All right, cool. So here, all the way up to here, Tama. So, and again, I pulled this so arbitrarily, so I can't read the lines. Or I can't read the numbers. But right now, we've blasted through that golden pocket area. Let me get this perfect here, or as close to perfect. Maybe off by a smidge, but you can see right here, the 618 and the 65 right there create that golden pocket area. And we literally, these two tops right here were actually resistance in that golden pocket. And that's coming from the lows here, right? So I was just kind of like playing around with it just to see like where we're at with that. Now, let me actually get down here with it. Yeah, so what we're really looking at here is a golden pocket. You can see this area here served as support for the golden pocket. This served as support. This was resistance. You can literally see the candle right there stop almost right in the middle of the golden pocket. Right? You can see this candle, the body of the candle right here. That guy right there just halted. It just took a breather and just said, we're going to take a nap, bruh. You got a couple of wicks here that popped into that. So ultimately what I think we're probably going to see is Bitcoin's going to have to retrace at some point. How much it retraces depends on the news, depends on ETFs that are coming along. Obviously, if you're following crypto on a daily or weekly basis, you're probably going to know that the SEC has been talking with BlackRock and a few of the other companies that are getting their ETF preparation. And what you need to understand is the very last deadline in 2024 for an ETF approval is January 10th. That's when ARK, and this is because ARK, their deadline for getting any type of ETF approval is going to happen by January 10th. Otherwise, they would have to resubmit for an ETF again. And if they do that, I mean, and this is where a lot of people think that January 10th is going to be the next deadline, or that's when it's going to get approved, or it's going to get approved in the beginning week of 2024, which it's very possible it could. I was screaming, the entire, since the ETFs got denied back in September of 2023, so just a few months ago, I was literally screaming at the top of my lungs, if they just said, they closed off the idea of ETFs until the government returned, or at that time until November, because they weren't sure if there was going to be a government shutdown, because the bipartisan conversations were not agreeing on a country budget or a budget to run the government off of. So they went ahead and decided they deferred until a later date on those specific ETFs, and they did it a full 2.5 weeks prior to when the deadline was. So it's really interesting because everybody was all up in arms, or like, we might get an ETF, and it's the same story every single month. And what's interesting is I don't know if these pumps are really caused by a potential ETF approval and the FOMO that's starting to get hyped up on it. And it's anybody's guess why the market's moving the way that it is, unless of course we get some really terrible news or some really great news. But right now it's all speculation. People are like, oh yeah, going into January, we're going to get that ETF. And it's very possible we might. And I was thinking, like in September, I was like, there's no way they're approving an ETF. At that time, the SEC and Gensler hadn't really flipped his tone at that point. Now, I think it was November is when Gensler started to kind of change his tone a little. But my real question is January going to be the month that we're going to see that ETF approval, or is it going to be by March? That's where BlackRock came out at some point and said by March of 2024 we'll have an ETF approval. One sec. So those are the real key moments. And I think that if people just start to get a realistic grasp on this whole thing, I think that's where the market is frothy, is on the ETFs. Now, it's very possible we could easily see a run up into the, like if we get an ETF approval, it's very possible if we crack this little volume piece right here, meaning this is where, the more buying and selling is happening, versus like down here, you've got some buyers and sellers at 37, 38,000. That's a pretty big peak. And as you go down, like there's more action that's going to happen because there are people that have placed orders, for example. So in explaining all that, so if we do get an ETF, it's very possible that we could, it's very possible we could hit 52, 53, 55,000. I don't know how much steam it would have once you get through this area right here. And you never know. It might almost hit all-time highs, but that's literally the area that we would be able to just suck straight into that 50, low 50s, probably not break 56,000, but that's going to be determined by obviously how many people that are wanting to get in on Bitcoin are going to use ETFs, because they most likely won't. They'll probably choose that investment vehicle over self-custody. And it's a shame, but maybe it does help provide a lot more movement. And what on earth has gotten on my sandals? All right, that's another conversation for another time. I think my dog might have slobbered on them and I didn't notice. That's a joke. That's a total joke. So really that's what we're kind of like contemplating and trying to figure out. Is Bitcoin going to go up? I don't see any reason that Bitcoin is going to get wrecked in 2020, in 2025. It's possible. But we do need to, have a serious conversation. I'm elderly. But the big questions are we going to see a massive dump in 2024? People are expecting the Fed to cut rates. And what happens when they cut rates? The markets traditionally sell off because it's going to be considered a recession. Now, there's been some interesting things that have come out more recently where, they've talked about using specific metrics, but those metrics may not technically actually call it a recession at that point. So it sounds like they're moving the goalpost down the field. The biggest question is is that going to convince the markets? Because if you say we're not in a recession, but we're cutting rates, and history tells us that that's what's happened. The markets have always sold off when they're cutting rates. And if the Fed here's the dilemma. The Fed cannot cut rates until we've gotten unemployment to a specific area, and until they see the economy really slowing down to the point where inflation starts to drop. Now, the problem is what happens if it doesn't drop and the Fed holds through the middle of the year? What happens if they don't start cutting rates until the end of 2024? Let's say the end of Q3. So you're in September, October late September, early October at that point. Technically it's October 1st, but if they cut rates in October, that means we're going into a recession heading into the bull run. And that recession could last anywhere from, 6 months, 12 months, 18, 24. It really just depends. And they can't print us out of it. And that's where the major problems lie. And that's where I'm really questioning what we're going to see as far as a bull run. Does the ETF approval set off any type of a recession? And I don't know that anybody can really say that it will or it won't until you actually get there. And that's like the concerning part for me as somebody who's definitely put a larger percentage of my net wealth in, and I shouldn't even say wealth. It's more like a couple peanuts and a tin can. But that's where that's where that concerns me. Not, and I'm not saying that projects are going to go to zero, but it's very possible. I mean, I could lose, 50% break even. It would be a damn shame to get this far into a full cycle and then just have it fall apart because of a recession and macroeconomic landscapes and, companies selling off. But also you got to think that smart money knows what's going to happen. You got to think that they're going to know if they start buying up like crazy in the second half of 2024 into 2025 and continue to buy heavy. I mean, how is that not going to spark FOMO for a lot of people? And especially people that, have a bunch of credit card debt, and a variety of other things that, maybe they're struggling with the house payment, car payment. Maybe they take out credit card loans and just go buy a bunch of crypto. I mean, and it's very possible that could happen. And that could be very, very bad for a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. Not that I say I know anything about what I'm doing. I'm just over here. I'm just a guy with a mouse and a computer. But yeah, those are some scenarios that you have to think through. And I don't want to say that the economy is so resilient that it's going to just push on through. And the main thing is when do they cut rates? Traditionally, we've seen 30, 60, 30, well, I should say 30, 40, 50, 60% market dumps. I mean, obviously, about 2007 or 2008 was the peak. And then the markets dumped at some point in 2008, about 25%, and then another 50% in 2009. So we're really looking at that type of a scenario where we're going to find out how resilient Bitcoin is. And the people that are holding right now or hodling, hodl. I'm going to hodl. I'm more of a fan of hodl than hodl because I don't hold anything in my hand. I'm not holding this pen. I'm holding the pen. So I would hodl it. Anyway, enough on that later, or more on that later. But those are the main concerns right now. As far as the black swan, you got to know the recession is there. Unexpected war, which who really knows? I mean, if it's not war, then maybe it turns out to be infrastructure failures or, hacks that happen that shut down pipelines or electricity. I mean, a variety of different things can really happen, So hopefully we don't get multiple black swans because that's the only way. And we would have to receive those probably within, I would say, the same week or so. Because if not, then Bitcoin may be resilient enough that we just see like a 10% drop one day and then it rockets back up 10% to be where we were 24 hours later, like we saw recently. So, we're looking at that. We're looking at those specific, ideas as far as what could cause a downfall for Bitcoin or a massive retracement. If the housing market were to take a massive hit, that could hurt too. But I'm not so sure that would cause a massive implosion, unless, of course, both the corporate and the residential housing markets or real estate markets started to have a dual crash around the same time. Maybe you mix in a recession at the same time, within the same week or so. God, my ankle itches. Ugh. And then, if there's anything else that comes along within the same week, I think that could be pretty detrimental. But that's like more of a doomsday. If we got like once a month for like 2 or 3 months in a row, we had like one black swan after the other. I mean, that could knock Bitcoin back down a little bit, but I don't know that I see more than a 50% retracement at this juncture. Maybe we see a retest of 20 grand. Maybe we don't. I'm more in the camp that I think we'll probably see just like a 30%, well, it's tough to tell. I mean, you just never know. So I'll just leave it at that. But I do want to look at this really quick one more time. This is probably I'm doing it backwards, but it's fine. I just wanted to look at that really quick. And then also, so 30% puts us at 30 grand, basically, right around 30, 29 change. 15 or 20% retracement puts us right around 33.9. And I don't think those are terrible. I think that we would probably hold the low to mid 30 range unless it was something catastrophic or multiple things coming about. I mean, you've got like a lot of support right around in this area. So, it'll be pretty tough to get below 30,000 just because we had two areas here, both these little areas. And that served as a pretty darn good resistance area for quite some time. People were moaning and groaning. I can't use CF's brother's name because I'll feel like I'm stealing. But ultimately, I think that we are looking at something. I don't want to say a muted bull run, but those are the scenarios. And there's other things. I question now with the wars that are going on or quote unquote skirmishes. It seems like they may not be headed in such a terrible direction, especially since our president did have some conversations with China, and it sounds like we're kind of getting back on track to staying off that we're getting off the World War III track or the heated escalations at this point. I mean, I think these countries are so good at, hacking and a variety of other things, shutting down infrastructure. That's really probably what the World War III is going to be about, is hacking another country and then, stealing whatever you can, power, energy. Well, you probably wouldn't steal power or energy, but my whole point is that they could shut down like a rail system. I mean, we had like a bunch of train wrecks pretty consistently over like a couple months that I was kind of like, really, you guys, is this like a thing now? I mean, if you wreck a train that has like a specific chemical on it and you were to wreck that train or to cause an accident and that's near a water supply, that could pollute like the water table for, a specific area. And if you do that with a major metropolitan area, that's going to be a little bit of chaos because then you got to ship a ton of water in. And those people have to be prepared for something like that. So I don't know. I'm looking at it and I'm just kind of playing out these scenarios and maybe we don't see any of that anymore. And maybe those were just some things that were just freak accidents. I'm not going to speculate because I don't have any real data for that. Or anybody on the inside track that would be able to help with kind of walking through that red hot mess. One of the other things I wanted to draw too is a trend line. We'll just call it from here. And then we'll get that guy. I mean, that's kind of a nice little trend line, I guess. Like it's not perfect because, this trend line here, and then you catch it here in the middle, and then we're just now touching it up here. Not my favorite trend line, but it does kind of sit okay there. But you can see here, we're right at the 46 line here, or 46K line. You might even see right about here is 52,000. So if I drew a line there, then we'd be in an ascending triangle, which is kind of bullish. I mean, it is bullish, but this is a trend line that's really honestly, it should probably run, I would say somewhere in this area. And I want to put it like right there because that would bounce right off of it. So that's one here, area of resistance here, or support here. Two right here with this wick. There's a wick right here that I put it right on top of. Well, I didn't do a great job there once I actually blew it up so you could all see it. But once we get right there, you're seeing these trend lines really start to take hold and to really start to show that support and resistance. I mean, you've got one area of support here, 2, 3, and then the body of this candle right here touches the line. Granted, it's not a wick, but that does show some support in my eyes. And as you come up here, there's a little bit of resistance right here. BT still to 12.5. Hey, what's up, Flex? That was great. So yeah, so I was just kind of talking about like the scenarios of Armageddon and things like falling apart at the seams. I have no idea. Like right now, I'm just like, yeah, we could see a 50% retracement. I mean, there's a whole lot of like, I don't know. Like the one thing that scares me is I think we've talked about this before is just that do we have enough time to recover from like a 30, 50, 70% retracement? If there were to be like multiple black swans, that's the thing that concerns me. Cause I mean, we're right now, I mean, 40%, like to hit this level of support, that's $25,000. I mean, of course, Bitcoin can always rip to the moon, but with the recession coming supposedly at some point, 60 to 75% correction to the downside. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I mean, it's very possible. I'm feeling more bullish that we may not see the retest of 15,000. And that was kind of I think I was right around in the 10 to 15 range or 12 to 15. And I think you were a little bit lower than that. I know you mentioned like 12.5, but yeah, I just like we're going to have to get like a recession. Let's just look at 60% to the downside. Oh God, that's so painful. My whole bag of alts would just get destroyed. Well, I'm glad you're confident because I feel like I need to be the less confident that we're going there. That's 16,000 if we go 65% or 60% roughly. Wow, 75%. That's right at 10K. I mean, that's 10,200 and that's 75.89%. Man, like the confident thing about it, I'm not confident with anything right now. Just as far as like trying to make a prediction, I would like when we were talking before. Best case, the highest low we see is 17.5. I hope we don't see anything lower than that. I mean, I'll say this for the people that waited for 10 to 12K, and I was in that group and finally had to pull the trigger on end of October when I started to see the alts start to creep up. I hope that it crashes for those people. And I'm hoping that that doesn't cause most of my alts to go to zero. But yeah, I mean, I'm just concerned about the amount of time that Bitcoin would need to recover. I mean, if we drop 75%, like that makes me think that we might just creep back up into the 60 to 90 range by the end of it. I don't know. I mean, and I'm just like kind of throwing it out there because you got the ETF, you have the recession coming. Supposedly we're in a credit crunch, which people are still buying a ton of stuff. So I don't know, man. Like I don't have a great feeling about it. And that serves like your thought process where you're like, the lowest high we're going to see or the highest low is 17.5. And I'm like, God, if that happens, that's going to wreck so many people. Do you know of anything new that like other scenarios? I know we talked about like, the real estate markets, like both commercial and residential, talked about like the recession coming. Yeah, that would be really cool. I honestly I don't know why they don't have a voice chat for the, well, I do, because there'd be a lot of crazy people in here screaming and yelling. Yeah, dude, that would be so wild though. I would love to get in a video chat if I could like stream live and then have you on too. That would be so much fun. But I just like honestly, my hands are just like I don't know. Somebody show me the path. I'm feeling very concerned. Yeah. Probably did touch on everything. I know we had a good little list of things that you threw out there, and I was just like, yes, this is the Armageddon list, the list of Armageddon. But yeah, my biggest thing, dude, is I like the only thing I'm concerned about is people want to see $100,000 Bitcoin. If we like before, when we had the COVID thing happen, that was March of 2020. And that was like a quick dip. I mean, that wasn't very long. But if we have a 75% retracement, yeah, let me know, man. This whole thing is just perplexing me. Like, my brain wants to be bullish. And it's like, if we get hit with some really bad news, and I'm on the weekly chart too. Well, that's a 60% retracement. And it took like basically a month, roughly. Well, this is really the mark here. Yeah, it was like 60%. That took like 35 days. So that's like a month. And then I'm actually doing this backwards, but 84 days there. So that's literally like 4 months just to like recover almost back to all-time highs. Like, that's my biggest concern with this entire, like, recession, Armageddon, World War III happening. I don't know. But the month after Christmas is going to be bad. That's all I'm saying. Christmas and New Year's comes and goes, and then everything goes downhill. I'm telling you. Yeah, there was somebody that said a quotes about something like November and December. Like, yeah, I'm going to misremember that. But let's see. December's always been pretty positive for Bitcoin. I think I saw somebody with a percentage on charts where Bitcoin has traditionally always done well in December. And that might make sense because people are like in the holiday spirit. They're just like getting their stuff together and going out there and buying a bunch of Bitcoin and whatnot. And then, maybe trying to sell it when they realize they bought too much in January. But one of the other things too is what's interesting is like, there's a lot of people that talk about de-risking or getting like negative investments off their balance sheets. More specifically, like institutions, for example, or companies will sell off usually like the last month of the year or during the last month of the year. I don't want to say it's going to be like the last week or two because they're going to be on vacation mostly. But that was one of the things that I was a little bit curious about because there was a little bit of a sell. I mean, last year was obviously the bottom for Bitcoin. So that, I don't know if you can really count that, but November, December was the bottom. And then January, Bitcoin just literally like January 1, I kid you not, or well, this says January 2 because we're on the weekly, but then it just started going up and up and up and it wouldn't quit. But Bitcoin was showing some serious resilience. So what are you thinking about the ETFs, man? Like, I'm curious what your thoughts are. I was super bullish on getting an ETF like by January 10th, which is the last, time frame for ARK to actually get approved. But I was just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that, because ultimately, like, I was watching another channel today and I posed the question. I'm like, well, I wonder. Oh, I know. I saw that. By the way, Peter Schiff was going off the rails. But yeah, I was watching, what was it? Oh, I had the question, how long does it take to resubmit an ETF after the deadline's over? I'm actually going to try to Google this really quick. Yeah, gold was looking really, really hot today. I'll tell you what, Gareth, he made some pretty good predictions about gold, and that they just didn't hit as hard as I thought they would. I was a little bit disappointed. How long does it take to resubmit an ETF? The fund liquidated share. Oh, yeah, that's not what we want there. Smart money is either hedging against a recession or a bad global event is going to be announced over the next few weeks. BTC climbing up on low volume, dumb money buying at the top. Yeah, man. The gold thing is definitely 100%. There's something going on because I know, like, I've heard several different people, and I cannot remember all of them, but they were literally talking about it. Like, if if the banks and smart money is buying gold, then you better watch out because they know something. Otherwise, they wouldn't be hedging their bets. I mean, I honestly, I think what they realize is that we might see rate cuts in Q1 or Q2 of 2024, and they're probably just trying to hedge their bets while gold is under $2,000. That would be my guesstimation. But I mean, what else are they gonna know? I mean, unless there's like countries that start collapsing or yeah, I don't know. Um, I'm not seeing it there, right where I want to see it. I mean, dude, I'll tell you right now, I like 40K doesn't sound horrid for a bit for to go buy a Bitcoin. I just wish I had 40K that I could spare. Whew, excuse me. Yeah, my question, like, it's very possible that I mean, you just got to wonder like who's telling the banks and the institutions to buy gold if there's going to be a war. I mean, have things started to escalate more? Because I haven't. I thought that like Israel Hamas has kind of de-escalated a little bit, and of course with Biden and the Chinese president, it sounded like they were being a little bit more cordial and friendly to each other, and promising to like make the relationship a little bit better. I kind of wonder about that. Let's see. I mean, why can't I just ask Google how long does it take to create an ETF or to resubmit an ETF that you just had denied? I feel like this should be an easy question. I mean, the Securities and Exchange Commission is not going to give me a. No, you're not. You're probably not wrong about that being, the de-escalation. I didn't even look at the market close today. I wonder what happened there. Oh, the honeymoon's over. Oh wow, Bitcoin is legit on the front page of Yahoo Finance. Not even sure if this is a respectable place to go, but yeah. Do you happen to know when Gary's term is up? Because I wasn't sure if it coincided with like a new party being elected. Crypto is having its 2023 moment. I'm having a moment. God. Okay. Let's look that up. That makes me wonder. Um, Q1 of 2025. That would make sense because that's when the new regime. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So it says Securities and Exchange Commission has 5 commissioners who are appointed by the President of the United States with the advice and consent of the Senate. Terms last 5 years and are staggered so that the commissioner's term ends on June 5th of each year. Interesting. So Gary Gensler is in office until 2026, Flex. How crazy is that stuff? I just don't know how they can. Yeah, so check this out. So you've got 2023, 2024, 2025, Gensler's 2026, and then Jamie Lazariga is 2027. Okay, so they stagger it every single that. What's goofy? I'm not goofy. But yeah, I think I know what you mean. It sounds like you probably mean the way they stagger them and the way that the way that they get appointed in their 5-year terms. That's interesting that they stagger these people so that every year one drops out and a new person comes in. Yeah, I think they'll probably fire him, or he may run for another area of the government. I thought he was trying to get into the Treasury at one point. Um, I want to Google that too. Because I think I wonder if he's aiming for Yellen's position. Um, I don't know where I heard that. Maybe I just like had a very crazy vivid dream and uh Gary Gensler takes Janet Smellin Yellen. I don't even know how to spell her name. I don't know who she is. I mean, I'm kidding, but new Treasury Secretary Gary Gensler. Yeah, okay. So this is 2022. Okay, man. It was good chatting with you for a few minutes. We'll definitely link up this weekend for sure. I promise you, I won't take naps, get sick, or drink a keg the night before. That was fucking horrible. Well, have a good night, brother. Peace and love. Handshakes, my man. And we'll catch up with you soon. Have a awesome rest of your night. Wow, I didn't even realize it was 11 o'clock. Um, Secretary. All right, let's peep this really quick. Okay, so he was the Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Financial Markets by President Bill Clinton. He will serve as a senior advisor to the Secretary of the Treasury in developing and implementing the federal government's policies and plans for debt management and the sale of U.S. government securities. Okay. Gensler will also advise on broad matters of federal, state, and local finance, including leading the Treasury's participation in the financing of the District of Columbia. Prior to his public service, Gensler worked at Goldman Sachs, where he became a partner in mergers and acquisition department, headed the firm's media group, led fixed income and currency trading in Asia, and was co-head of finance responsible for the firm's worldwide controllers and treasury efforts. Gensler served as the 11th chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission under President Barack Obama from May 26, 2009 to January 3rd, 2014. Well, Gensler's going to get him. Yeah, I don't see anything about the U.S. Treasury. Who knows? We'll find out, though. I have many questions. Many questions. I really want to make some. I do want to do some trades, but I just don't think it would be a good idea right now. I mean, of course, I say that now, just like I did last weekend, and absolutely missed some of the biggest rips in quite some time. I can't believe that. Oh, goodness. Goodness gracious. Well, ETH is up to 2,200, so all that needs to do is do a 1x or 2x, and it'll almost be at all-time highs. I think it hit $4,800 before. BNB, still not terrible. Didn't get pummeled too terribly hard. I want to take a look at that chart really quick, just here on CoinGecko, just to see what that looks like from a CZ dump perspective. Yeah, so it was 350, and now it's sitting at 230. So that's basically about a 50% dump. Or, well, yeah, it's a $120 dump. So it's not horrid. Hopefully. And it's rebounded a little too. It went down to $200 from 350. So that's about a 30 to 40% dump, somewhere around in there. I want to look at some other smaller alts. Solana's sticking around at $60. God, that thing's a beast. It dropped to 10 and I'm kicking myself. I say that jokingly. I'm actually not beating myself up too badly about that. That's a 600% since it was at its all-time low at $10. When I saw it down at 10 to 12, I was just like, I should buy this. And the only thing that held me back was the fact that FTX hadn't dumped yet. They had a bunch of Solana, and the uptimes for Solana really concerned me. It's a good project. Supposedly it's really super fast. I don't know the TPS throughput on it, but it's definitely not looking too horrid. I mean, it's probably, I think it's probably going to give some of these other alts in the top 5. I mean, I think it's going to overtake XRP at some point, probably in the next month or two is my guess. Ethereum, I mean, if Solana does a 10x from here, that'll put it at 250. If Ethereum just doubles, that's a $500 billion. If Bitcoin doubles, that's an 80K, that's 1.6 trillion. I mean, that's not too far away. I really don't think that's impossible. I mean, if you get Bitcoin at just doubles and it's at 1.6 and we have an $82,000 Bitcoin, Ethereum hits, 500 trillion or 500 billion, then you're sitting at a $2.1 trillion market cap. And if Ethereum hits 500 billion, then you're probably going to have 150, $200 billion projects. And so that's where this starts to get very, very interesting. Siri, go away, please. Siri, go away. Go away. Go away. Don't need you, Siri. Please leave. This is a private conversation. Thank you. That was excessive. But I mean, I think it's possible for Bitcoin to hit the 120s. Now, everything leading up to the parabolic run up in 2025 is going to really determine what happens. I mean, if you get a 2.5 trillion, I mean, that's 2.4 trillion. If it goes up 3x from here, that's 2.4 trillion. That'll be $120,000 Bitcoin. You got to look at it, and 2.4 trillion. Let's just say that ETH hits 10K. That would be a 5x. That would be, $1.1, $1.25 trillion market cap for ETH. That's assuming that people go for it over Solana or a cheaper, faster chain that doesn't have any problems with gas fees. And that's where I think the real thing is. I mean, for adoption to happen, I think you're going to have a cheaper, faster chain with a lot of uptime. Not saying that ETH has had a lot of downtime, but the expense of the gas fees is number one. Scaling is number two. And I know, Solana and Cardano are definitely nipping at its heels. Now, Cardano, if it does a 10x from here, that's a $140 billion project. I mean, it's easy. Like, it's easily possible. And that would only be, I think it hit 88 billion in 2021. If it only does a 2x, and that's, if it does a 2x from all-time highs, that would be $6 per coin. I mean, I gotta believe it's gonna hit right? Unless people just don't utilize it. $6 per coin times 35. What's 6 times 35 billion? That's $210 billion. So if it does a 3x from its all-time high, like at the very most, and I'm actually doing like a 2x over its all-time high, which would be $6, then you're looking at $210 billion Cardano project. The real question is how normalized and how easy is crypto for the new normies coming in 2025? Because they're going to start flooding the markets. If Bitcoin starts ripping, If we don't have a massive recession that crashes all the markets, including the crypto market, if we get an ETF in, I'll just say respectfully, early to late 2024, I think it would probably serve crypto better to have an ETF approval. I'm going to say after after the recession's announced, if the recession is ever announced. They might just say, well, we're in a little bit of a slump. I should say a little bit of a gully. So when we're talking about projects like Cardano is doing really well, Charles is just chomping at the bit to get some sort of clarity. I mean, they're calling it a security, and they didn't even launch Cardano in the United States. He launched it over in Japan, and from my understanding, it doesn't sound like it should be considered a security. But that's to be determined at a later date for sure. Chainlink, if it 10x's from here, that'd be a $150 Chainlink. That'd be an $80 billion market cap. That's not bad. I mean, if it could 20x from here, 20 times 8 would be 160 billion. I mean, if Cardano can do it, and if Chainlink gains worldwide adoption, I mean, that would be, $300 Chainlink. That's probably not out of the realm of question. If Dogecoin 10x's, that's 120 billion. That would mean Chainlink would have to just catch absolute fire. You're talking Avalanche with 10x right now. That would put it back at all-time highs. The real question is which of the 20% of all these coins are going to get bigger all-time highs, higher all-time highs? XRP scares me for that reason, but they were suppressed in 2021 due to the lawsuit, and hopefully, like at some point, we're going to see any kind of change there. I mean, that thing needs to be over. Like, that is such a travesty that Gary Gensler has used them to just put on the chopping block. I mean, I don't suspect that all these coins are going to they might all 10x from here, right? If they did, just say hypothetically, not Bitcoin or Ethereum, but definitely Ethereum is not doing a 10x from here. Or at least I don't think so. It could. Anything's possible. I mean, if Ethereum doubled, that'd be a $500 million. Well, let's see. XRP's at 33 billion. It's basically 1/10 the price of Ethereum. So maybe it gets to 1/5 the price of it, and it winds up at, 300. Well, that'd be 100 billion. So it might 3x and get to 180. I don't know. I'm so conflicted on XRP just because of, it's been around. It's a staple. It's got great mechanics for the banking system. At the end of the day, the banks are going to regain control. For me, it's a pure money play. I do support decentralization, but at the end of the day, with Ripple and XRP, they're hooking into banking systems, financial systems around the world. I think they realize that the dream of a decentralized world right now is probably years, decades away before I think people will be fed up. That's assuming that, the institutions and the leaders of the world are not trying to control and change our world into some dystopian nightmare that pretty much is getting in that direction. Shiba Inu scares me to death right now. It seems like it's slowly kind of been losing its luster. I know there's some people that I've chatted with who are very unhappy about the ecosystem, and things just I don't know exactly what their gripes were because I didn't get a lot of defined information, but there's definitely some people that I saw that were not happy with what was going on. Monero looks great. I mean, it's a privacy coin. I'm not going to own it just for the sheer fact that I'm trying to stay out of any type of, issue with any government agency because it's a privacy coin. That's the only reason that stops me from using some Monero. Wow, Near protocol's at $2.25 per coin. Good gracious. I'm up, I think, 120% on that coin. I think I got it right around $1.10. At least 100% for sure. minimum. Um, Caspa, I wonder how much juice is left in that coin. I think I've heard it's a great project, but until we get to the bull run, until narratives start spinning, you got to ask yourself, like, could it 10x from here and get 30 billion? Yeah, that would put it at $1.40. Could it 20x and go to 60 billion? Yeah, I think so. It just depends on how rigorous and like dedicated the community is. I'm wondering about how HBAR and the barbarians come back. Like, what does that community look like? Dogecoin's community, SHIB's community. Those are some really strong communities last time. Obviously, Cardano's got a pretty strong following. There's a lot of people that got in early, I guess, that loved that project. Those are not, and HBAR is like one of my bigger bags, to be brutally honest with you. It's in the top 3 or 4. So I want to see it do really well. I actually think it's a great, it's a hash graph, but it's not actually a blockchain. However, it is some really, really solid technology, and they have a lot of backing. They've got a lot of connections. So we'll see how that plays out. Near Protocol, that spot is juiced to the boobies. Near Protocol uses JavaScript now, or there's a way that you can use JavaScript to build on top of their infrastructure, which is amazing for the 24 million developers worldwide, or I think that's worldwide and not just in the United States. I know when I search for people, how many JavaScript developers are in the United States of Hamerica. Okay, so there's 13.8 million. How did I get 24? Maybe it was Python and JavaScript combined. I thought there was 24. I must have. Let's go with world. Yeah, 17.4 million. I don't know where I got 24 million from. Apparently I'm losing my mind. So I was wrong about tax brackets today too. And I was chit chatting on Dan, in the chat there, hanging out with my homies. But, I was like 10% for, long-term capital gains and like 25 for short-term. And Dan was like, no. It was so painful. I was like, how did I get that wrong? I don't know if they've changed the tax brackets or whatever, but they basically like go up to 20% on your long-term capital gains. Let's see. How much in taxes would I have to pay in Tennessee if I made $1 million for trading stocks long term? This will probably lead me to some obscure website. All right, let's go here to smartasset.com. The only reason I'm going there is because it's smart asset, Initial value. Let's just do this. Cause I think a realistic number, like for some people to try to hit $1 million portfolio, we're going to go with 1 million, and then more than a year. We'll go with annual income 0. Single, and then we'll put Tennessee. Whoops, that's not how you spell my state. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so here's interesting. If you don't have an annual income, then you would pay. Let me actually bump this up to $1 million just to see. Okay, that seems more realistic. Cause okay, so and the reason I'm doing this is just so I can kind of get a gauge on what this might look like. So marginal tax rate, effective tax rate. I mean, if you make $1 million, $200,000 isn't so bad. I mean, it hurts a little. That leaves you with 700 and change. You know, I mean, if you had any tax loss harvesting, which I do have some, it's painful to talk about, but not really. It's just like I just kept a level head about it. Yeah, that's not terrible. I mean, that's 20%. So, and the reason I factored it this way is because I wanted to see if, and this is just this is like way more than I've got involved, but I wanted to kind of do a nice round number just to see what that looks like. So let's boost this down to 500,000. I just want to see what that looks like. 95 grand isn't terrible. That means you walk away with 400K. I mean, I don't know that I'll actually be able to do that. um, let's walk it to 250 and see what that looks like. It's almost like this is keeping it right at, it's almost like it's, yeah, see that right there is just over 10%. And then if we go to 500, whoops. If we go here for 500,000, so that would be $95,000. That means that you basically took $100,000 and you made, you know, 4 times your money. So $400,000. So 400,000 of it, that's 25% on taxes. That's not terrible, but you have to hold your assets more than a year. So, okay. Oh, wait, that says Texas. We don't want Tennessee Colony, Texas. How about Nashville, Tennessee? I just want to see if this changes significantly or not. I don't think that it will, because neither one of them have a, neither one of them have a state income tax. So, interesting. That's not as bad as I thought it would be. It really isn't. Let's do 1,500,000 just for fun. I just want to see what this picture looks like. Okay. You do 1.5 million and that's 330,000. Wow. I would have never thought that you'd walk away with more than $1 million. Wow. That would be so that would be so amazing. Oh, and by the way, when I talk about like finances and this kind of thing, it's good to plan what you want to do with your money. It's good to kind of understand what you're going to be paying, right? And like, let's look at this example, 1.5 million, you pay out capital gains taxes, you'll pay out would be, 330,000. You want to make sure you know what you're going to do with your money. You want to make sure that you don't like just go out and spend it right when you cash out, because you're going to have to pay those taxes and that's going to hurt a little bit. One of the things I'm actually researching and looking into is, can I take my money out of crypto as soon as I sell out, put it into like a company that'll invest it for me and give me like a 5 to 7% churn rate. So I'm gaining 5 to 7% money on what I give them, and defer my taxes. So I don't pay in April, I pay in October. So if I get 5 to 7%, like let's just say 5% on $1 million, that's 50 grand by just giving them the money to sit and to have them invest it, assuming they don't lose all my money. So that's something that you can look at too. If you're going to have, I think usually those types of companies require about $500,000. But it's a great way to lock your money up. I mean, obviously if you still have a job, you haven't told your boss to F off yet, pew, 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 pew. And you churn it. So it'll be interesting to see how that, how everything plays out. But I'm researching that because I'm hoping and praying I can get to a $500,000 mark. I don't necessarily know that it's going to happen. I've been told not to even expect a 10x or, a 20x on your money. Like from what I've learned, that you should expect like a 5x on your money on your returns. Now we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But ultimately, it should be a good idea for you to know what you're going to do with your money, have multiple bank accounts, have multiple exchanges that you can sell off to, or transfer funds, for example, if you need to. And then that way you're not all locked up if they freeze your accounts for some weird reason, which that would really just cause a lot of problems with a lot of people, I think. But ultimately, like, that's just kind of the way I'm looking at it. Let's just see what 2.5 million looks like. It'll probably be like $500,000. Yeah, 571. Huh. That would be so badass. If I was able to do that, that would be like 1,000x. There's no way with my portfolio I'm getting there. Oh, I wish it would. But you can't get rich all in one cycle, unless of course you have the capital. I mean, if you were bringing in $250,000 to put into crypto and you were risking it on alts, then maybe you could get, a solid, 2.5, 3.5 million. But you'd have to be pretty careful and know what you're doing. So initial value, wow. So if you get 2.5, that's around 600,000 in taxes. So you'd walk away with right around 1.9 million. Let's look at 50,000. Let's see what that picture looks like. Oh, so when you use less money, if I use 25,000, I bet the taxes go up they go up a little bit, just because that's 100x right there. If you throw in 25,000, you walk away with 2.5 million. That's 100x right there. Well, it's 20x actually, technically. So 10 times 25,000 would be 250,000, and 250,000 times 10 would be 2.5 million. So, is that real? Is my math wrong? I think my math is wrong. So, wait. So 25 on a 4x would be 100,000 on an 8x. Yeah, that is right. I just wanted to make sure. I'm super tired right now. You think I'm completely an idiot, which is very possible. That's interesting. All right. Now let's look at this from 100,000. Like, just because 100,000 is more realistic, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I just wanted to see what these numbers look like. I want to see what this looks like for less than a year. Okay, so 100,000 at 2.5 years, spending 570,000. Oh wait, that's more than a year. I didn't go to less than a year. Yeah, so your taxes basically double. So don't sell less than a year. You will kick yourself right in the cheeks. All right, let's get this back to like a reasonable number. For some of you richies, you riches, I'm a poor right now, so just hold your horses. So let's look at 1 million less than a year. Okay, yeah, so that's where you start to really crush yourself, is 367,000. Sorry, I had a deep itch in my ear. All right, let's do 50,000, and then let's just change this to 500, and then 500,000 on short-term capital gains. Yeah, so the move, you need to understand this. If you're buying now and you're going to be holding all the way through, at least midway of 2025, you should be totally fine. And it might even be an advantage to you can, and this isn't strategy that I'm like actually employing, because I want to be very careful with what I'm doing personally. What my thought process is, let me actually bump it off the screen really quick. So one of the things that I've been thinking about is like, okay, what's my exit strategy? You know what? I'm just going to actually crush this stream right now. And then I'm going to create a new video on exit strategies, when and how and why to sell, etc. So let's do that. Thank you for coming out to check out Digital Asset Degen. This was a lot longer stream than I anticipated because ultimately it's been a while and I've been a slacker. But thank you for coming out and checking out Digital Asset Degen. My name's Ryan. Degen's going to Degen, right? Smash the like, subscribe, pass it along to your family and friends if you want to. If you love the content, definitely pass it along. If you hated it, still pass it along anyway. Do a guy a favor. All right. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful rest of your night. I'm out. Pieces.